The government is boasting an increased revenue collection while the opposition calls for lower taxes, but the private sector thinks that it is a little more complicated. On March 13th, the Prime Minister and the private sector met in a consultation. The event brought together leaders of business and economics. Prominent economist Richard Peterkin says that the meeting highlighted a key problem with the strong growth Saint Lucia has shown.
VAT has been consistently going up. Revenues have been buoyant. I'll give the different ministries, particularly in revenue, credit for the fact that there's been a consistent improvement in the revenue collections, and so sometimes referred to as buoyancy, notwithstanding the issues we've had ever since COVID, for example. So it shows that we're okay on revenue and taxes from the point of view of government does not have to increase taxation. But the big issue is always, as again Dr. Anthony once said, we don't have a revenue problem in Saint Lucia, we have an expenditure problem.
The private sector also pointed out the factors that are expected to contribute to a deficit.
No matter how much you collect, if you spend more than you collect, then you end up with deficits. And that is essentially the issue that governments have had to deal with over the last, since independence. Because at the end of the day, if there's the deficit, then it means you've got to borrow money. And it's interesting to note that Jamaica, in this coming recent budget of a couple of weeks ago, for the first time in a long time, projected a balanced budget. That is, no deficits. Barbados didn't have a balanced budget, but a reduced deficit. And I think what the government is projecting this time is going to be, again, a reduced deficit to less than 3% of GDP, which is regarded as the line in the sand that you don't want to cross.
Commenting on the government's choice to implement a 2.5% health and security levy instead of following the private sector's recommendation to raise the VAT rate for increased revenue, Peterkin highlighted the underlying political factors influencing the government's decision.
For that reason, it does not look as if there's likely to be any increase in the VAT or any reduction in taxes. We would like to see VAT perhaps go back to 15%, the health and levy be eliminated, a reduction in corporate tax to 25%, and maybe a continued personal tax reform, which doesn't necessarily, with a top rate of 25%, but they did a lot of reform in the last year, and so to that extent now there's a higher personal threshold of 25,000 and other deductions of up to 30,000. So again, at the bottom, a lot of people are not paying tax, but the middle class is the one that ends up being squeezed.
For Choice News Now, I am Dyrod Lionel.